Bradley, real quick, Canelo, Crawford, who you got next weekend? You don't know? You gotta pick one. You're a boxing fan. It's a good fight.
No, I like the boxing, bro. I'll probably go Crawford.
You gonna go Crawford?
That's tough. I don't know. I'm not a boxing expert. I don't know.
Are you gonna bet on it?
Hell no.
You're the man. Good luck with the Clippers next season.
The buzz around Canelo Alvarez and Terrence Crawford's showdown has only grown louder as voices from across the boxing world weigh in.
Canelo Crawford is coming up this weekend and everybody's excited. Here in Vegas, the electricity is in the air. So look, even though these guys are combined almost 80 years old, it should be a good fight. And let me tell you why. Crawford is coming up 2 weight classes and he's coming off a year's layoff. So that's a huge advantage for Canelo. If Canelo forces his will on him, he'll probably be 190 pounds inside the ring on fight night. I give him a great shot in the 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th round to knock out Crawford. If he doesn't do that, then Crawford is gonna box his ears off. It might be another Mayweather versus Canelo. Remember when Mayweather was just schooling him and making him look silly? That can happen again this Saturday.
Predictions have been coming in thick and fast, and though the opinions vary, one thing is clear. This fight has captured the imagination of everyone who loves the sport. Looking at what these fighters bring to the table and what insiders are saying, it's easy to see why this matchup has become one of the most anticipated in years.
Crawford kind of is guilty of that too in some ways. Like Amir Khan and Kell Brook, when Crawford got Khan and Brook, they're a shell of what they were before, you know? So again, it looked good on the resume, but they weren't really that, you know, those guys.
I'd argue neither of them looked good on the resume when they happened because everyone knew they were shells.
Yeah, by that point.
Yeah.
I mean, just because everybody's rah-rahing with their pom-poms when Canelo beats the same kind of guys doesn't mean that those guys weren't just a shot. Angulo was gone when Canelo fought. He dug him up out of the cemetery when Canelo fought him. And then Chavez, I don't even know what the point of that was, but obviously that was a money grab.
That was just Mexican versus Mexican money grab.
I get it. That was Mexican versus Mexican money grab. I get it. But you know, I don't necessarily buy into it, but you know, you can always nitpick. You know, this is fight week. There's conversation points. There's debate topics, and obviously the Canelo bandwagoners are going to have their say, and the Crawford bandwagoners are going to have their say.
Among those who gave their thoughts, Roy Jones Jr. stood out for backing Crawford with remarkable confidence. Jones, who knows what it feels like to move up and challenge bigger men after his own success at heavyweight, sees a lot of himself in Crawford's approach. He believes that Crawford has done everything possible to prepare his body for the size difference, and that gives him more tools to win than Alvarez. To Jones, the Mexican champion has a far narrower route to victory, while Crawford has several. He even admitted that if he had to put money down, he would bet on the American because of his freshness, hunger, and versatility. What struck Jones most was the question of Alvarez's motivation. He's not entirely sure the fire still burns as hot as it once did for Canelo.
Fight the absolute correct fight that he can fight, the only correct fight that he can fight. He does have a chance, and I think he could be victorious. If he doesn't fight the one way that he can only fight to win it, Terrence Crawford has 6 ways he can win it. And my money will go on the man who has 6 ways to win it over the man who has 1 way of winning.
So you think Canelo has to kind of fight the perfect fight, right?
If he don't, he in trouble. If he does, he should be all good.
Keith Thurman offered a slightly different take. He reminded everyone that Alvarez has never been untouchable and that no fighter is beyond being figured out. He raised the question of whether Canelo still has the same bite, especially since the Mexican hasn't been finishing opponents with the same authority in recent fights. For Thurman, that could swing things toward Crawford, yet he also warned about the dangers of adding extra weight. Crawford's agility and speed are what make him special, and there's always the risk that carrying those extra pounds might slow him down in the later rounds. For Thurman, that balance of size versus sharpness is what makes this fight such a fascinating clash.
Opening half is him working behind the jab. If he does not work behind the jab, he is not geared for the tactical approach. And the only other approach, which is the Hail Mary, is that you hurt the gorilla neck boy. You know, this freaking gorilla exercise.
Don't rely on that.
He's hard to hurt, man. He's hard to hurt.
Don't rely on hurting Canelo. I think
that's what I'm saying. Triple G didn't drop him. All these fighters been hitting him.
Take a page from Bivol and Mayweather. What they do is they fought behind the jab. They kept their distance. They've used the entire ring, and that's something that he can bring to the table. Use that distance from both
Bivol backed him up.
But the funny thing is, with the extra body weight, is he agile?
Yeah.
Is the footwork going to be able to move, still use the ring, and as those later rounds, round 7,
that's what I said to you last week, 14 pounds matters.
9, 10, you know, as the pressure continues. You know, the other thing too is Canelo lost a little bit of his bite. He hasn't been tremendously, you know, devastating and taking people out. So that helps, that reestablishes the fight and is in Bud Crawford's favor there.
George Kambosos Jr., known for his tactical approach in the ring, saw a very clear plan for Crawford. He expects the American to force Alvarez to chase him, exposing the same issues Canelo showed in his last fight against William Skull, where he struggled to cut off the ring. That raised questions about whether the Mexican has lost a step. Still, Kambosos was quick to point out that Alvarez has a way of showing up differently when the stakes are highest. Fighters like him can sometimes find another gear entirely, and he expects Alvarez to bring that in this fight.
Both guys have such dynamic, boxing attributes. And like I said, Canelo has to press Crawford. He has to be able to use his size, bully him, and able to land them shots that are going to hurt him and put him in 2 frames of mind. Now, Crawford, on the other hand, as much as the size difference doesn't really look like there is a size difference, there is a difference in the weight they've been fighting at. And like I said, Canelo's been fighting as high as light heavyweight. Crawford, in his last fight, did go up to junior middleweight against Madrimov. He did seem to struggle a little bit with a guy at a higher weight. So now you're moving up to super middleweight, will have some effect. But again, it is the biggest fight of his life, biggest fight of Canelo's life, and you're gonna truly think that they're gonna be prepared for anything. But the big thing is, will Crawford be able to dictate the fight against a guy like Canelo Alvarez, who's the bigger man, the guy who's gonna be pushing the pressure. We saw the way he dictated and hurt Errol Spence.
Max Kellerman leaned heavily toward Crawford, and his reasoning was rooted in longevity. Both fighters may be in their late 30s, but Alvarez turned pro as a teenager and has already logged nearly 2 decades of high-level competition. That sort of mileage, Kellerman argued, leaves its mark. Crawford, by comparison, has remained fresher while still taking on elite challenges, including decisive wins against Errol Spence Jr. and Madrimov. For Kellerman, Crawford simply appears to be ticking more boxes at this stage of their careers, which tilts the balance in his favor.
But where would you rank this fight out of your top 3 to 5 of all the boxing fights you've called, you've experienced, you've watched?
In terms of the magnitude of the fight?
Yeah, the magnitude, yeah.
I mean, of the fights that I've called ringside, it might turn out to be number 1. I've done Pacquiao fights, I've done Mayweather fights, I've done Anthony Joshua against Klitschko, those are big fights, but this will, listen, because of Netflix, this will be the most watched fight, championship fight, in almost 50 years. This is going to be, because Muhammad Ali fought Leon Spinks in the rematch in '78, and they did 90 million TV sets, 90 million. And since then, what has even come close? The biggest fights have all been on pay-per-view, and they do 2 million buys, oh my God, 4 million buys, Mayweather Pacquiao. As I keep saying, if 5 people per TV set watch, that's 20 million people. This is gonna do multiples of that. So, so when you look at it from a commercial point of view, it'll easily be the biggest boxing event I've ever covered.
Andy Ruiz kept things more measured. Having felt the strength of big punchers himself, Ruiz acknowledged that Canelo's power is something every opponent has to respect. But he also pointed out a detail often overlooked. Alvarez has not always been comfortable with southpaws. Since Crawford can fight just as effectively from the southpaw stance, that might become a key factor. Even so, Ruiz refused to make a firm call, saying the fight feels too close to predict. To him, both men bring dangerous weapons that could tilt things either way.
Well, all I know is that if you were in a Canelo Crawford card, that card would be a million times. It's still an amazing card, but you would have added a lot. Who wins, Canelo or Crawford?
I think it's gonna be a good fight, man. I'm going for Canelo, of course. You know, he's the Mexican warrior as well. But Crawford, man, you can't neglect him or you can't underestimate him as well. You know, he has a lot of skills, a lot of movement. He's a lefty as well. That's what Canelo has trouble with. I think it's gonna be an amazing fight, man. I just can't wait, and the best man wins.
John Ryder, who shared the ring with Alvarez and endured 12 brutal rounds, knows firsthand what it's like to deal with Canelo's power. He still remembers how one punch broke his nose and changed the course of their fight. From his perspective, this matchup feels like a genuine 50-50 contest. Ryder praised Crawford's versatility, especially his ability to switch stances, move with speed, and use both hands effectively. He's certain Crawford has studied Dimitri Bivol's blueprint, the one man in recent memory to cleanly outpoint Alvarez. Still, Ryder stressed that Canelo's size and power remain major weapons, and his style of collecting information early before unleashing his plan later in fights is something that could still prove decisive.
You faced Canelo. If you could give some pointers to Crawford, what should he do to come out victorious in September?
I think you just got to watch the Bivol blueprint, the in and out. I mean, a lot of fighters getting stick now for being runners, Tom and Jerry and whatnot. But stick to what you're good at. Terence Crawford is an exceptional talent. He's won titles through the weights, undisputed at, 3 weights now. And listen, if anyone can do it, it's him. I think the weight will be too much of an issue. Canelo is a special talent. And I think the weight will play a factor in the fight, but listen, Canelo once done it and made the step up to super middleweight. I would like Crawford to be more at light middle and middle to build into it, but you take these opportunities when they come, and that's what greatness is.
Edgar Berlanga, another fighter who experienced Alvarez's punches firsthand, surprised many by leaning toward Crawford's chances. Berlanga admitted that Canelo's power is punishing and something he himself felt in their fight. He explained how so many opponents enter the ring against Alvarez with confidence, only to be systematically broken down, just as happened with Jermell Charlo, Caleb Plant, William Skull, and even Berlanga himself. Still, he sees Crawford as a different breed because of his brain, adaptability, and ability to adjust in ways those other fighters could not.
Any advice to him?
First of all, he got to go in there and he just got to fight him. You know what I'm saying? He got to go in there. I think Crawford just got to go in there and do what he got to do. You know what I'm saying? He got to just be Crawford, show his IQ, show him why he's a 2-time undisputed, world champion, and go in there with confidence. You know what I'm saying? That's all it is. It's a big weight difference, a big weight jump. That could be a difference in the fight. Because obviously, it's like me jumping up to heavyweight. Obviously, I'm a foot of power. I'm a foot of that size difference, compared to my other fights. So I just think that he got to go in there and just be himself. And I said, if he loses, we'll just all know that, hey, he just jumped up 2 weight classes to be great. You know what I'm saying? It's not. He can't really. He's testing himself. He's testing himself a great fighter. So, and I don't doubt him. I don't got no doubt in my mind. He's a 2-time undisputed world champion for a reason. So, and I don't think nothing's gonna phase him in that fight. You know what I'm saying? Maybe the power, maybe the size. You know what I'm saying? And Canelo, he's not knocking Canelo out. So, he just got to go in there just IQ.
Would you lean towards Canelo still in that fight?
I got faith in him. I think Crawford could do it. You know what I'm saying? I think he could do it. Just like I said, just the size. The only shit that throws the fight off is the size and obviously the power, and Canelo's IQ too, because Canelo got IQ. You know what I'm saying? And Canelo fought a lot much bigger guys. So I know the Crawford's power ain't gonna phase him. I know Crawford's size ain't gonna phase him either. You know what I'm saying? So, but for me, I think it's a 50-50 fight.
Tim Bradley added a unique perspective by pointing out Crawford's unusual gift of near photographic memory. According to him, Crawford studies opponents like few others, remembering every detail and adjusting quickly. Bradley believes that's what makes Crawford so dangerous. He rarely falls into the same trap twice. In his view, Crawford will likely take a round or two to study Alvarez, then set up traps to exploit the Mexican's habits. That kind of adaptability, Bradley argued, could be the deciding factor that allows Crawford to emerge victorious.
Yeah, man, I was thinking, man, like a lot of people is making a fuss about Crawford being out of the ring for over a year. I'm not putting too much stock into that, man. I'm not really, Floyd Mayweather's came back from after a year. I remember John Jones 3 years out of the game. You know, and I know it's a different sport, but it's still combat sports. 3 years out of the game, came back, faced the champion, beat him, beat the champion. You know, Crawford took the time to really build his body up, man, the way he needed to build it up. And I like his build because just looking at pictures and stuff like that, man, he put a lot of the weight on his legs. You know, that's gonna help with stability. That's gonna help with punching power. It's gonna help with his ability to be able to take a shot too. You know, he get razzled and dazzled in there from one of them big shots from Canelo. You know, he gonna have some stability. He gonna have a base to be able to keep himself up. Crawford has been working for this for the last year. He's been building. If you know anything about Team Crawford, man, and just anything about Crawford in general, he's probably one of the most disciplined athletes in the entire world. You know, he's a guy that stays in the gym year round, you know, never dull. You know, another guy was Boots. Boots stays in the gym quite a bit too. He does. You know, I hear that from everybody. He's always in the gym. Crawford's the same way. He's a gym rat. Stays in the gym, always constantly doing something, you know, sharpening his tools, you know, working on his craft all the time, keeping a good weight. You know, Crawford in between camps, you know, he'll probably go up about 20-something pounds, you know, but it don't look bad on him. You know, it doesn't look bad on him. You know, when I had ran into him earlier, before this fight even was announced, you know, I would ask him, I'm like, how much you weigh? About 175. Not crazy, you know, not crazy. No, but he still looked good. It was a 175 in shape. It was a 175 in shape. Like, this dude can go run up and down the court, play basketball, you know? He can go out there and play football if he wanted to go play football, you know? Like, he's an athlete, a natural athlete, man.
Chris Algieri took a step back from pure predictions. He felt that in some ways the result doesn't matter as much as the sheer courage it took for Crawford to chase this fight. For him, the American has already cemented his legacy by daring to step into the ring with Alvarez at super middleweight. Algieri emphasized that Crawford has always tested himself against the most dangerous opposition, and this fight is just another example of him building a legacy by chasing greatness rather than comfort.
That's not going to be Crawford, and that's not going to be Canelo. They're going to be their peak of what they are at this point. Because again, Crawford is 38 years old. Canelo will be 35 by then. So I think they're going to be the peak for what they are at their ages. But it's easy to go, wow, what have you done for me lately? That's usually how everyone kind of sees everything. So, but I think it's good. I think it makes the fight more enticing if a lot of people are thinking that Crawford can win. And don't get me wrong, Crawford can absolutely win the fight. I'm not saying he can't win the fight. But in terms of, you know, how I see it, it hasn't really changed my thoughts because I know better than to just trust that last thing I saw because there's a lot of confounding factors.
Stephen A. Smith didn't shy away from making a clear call. He predicted Crawford would win on points. While he didn't expect Alvarez to be stopped inside the ring, he felt Crawford's speed, movement, and ability to switch stances would allow him to outpoint the Mexican. Smith also criticized Alvarez's current style, arguing that he has become too predictable by relying too much on single power shots rather than mixing up his attacks. Against someone as smart as Crawford, he thought that flaw could be crucial. However, he did acknowledge the danger of Alvarez's natural size at 168 pounds, warning that Crawford can't afford to trade too often.
You got a love for boxing.
Yes, love
Who
boxing.
Gonna win the fight, man? That's coming up, the biggest
Crawford.
fight in boxing.
Crawford.
Huh?
Crawford. I'm not hesitating. Crawford. I'm not even hesitating. Crawford.
You gonna stand on that all the way to September 13th?
I love Canelo. Crawford will beat Canelo. Crawford will beat Canelo by decision. I can't see anybody knocking out Canelo Alvarez. But I do believe that if you can box and you can move, that you can beat Canelo. You can outpoint him.
That's right.
When I think about Canelo, one of the things that I don't like about Canelo, despite his greatness, and a neck as wide as Broadway for crying out loud.
Right.
It's like almost every shot has to be a power shot.
It's a power shot, yeah.
That's not beating Crawford. I will confess, I think Gervonta Davis's trainer, Cal, I think he said this. He said Crawford could find himself in trouble if he decides to engage with Canelo, because Canelo is the naturally bigger, strong fighter. And I don't care that Crawford's gotten bigger, and I don't care that Crawford's gonna go in there just as big as Canelo. Canelo is accustomed to fighting at the weight. and Crawford is not. And Canelo is a genius in this regard. You don't see him show up for fights not ready. He's always ready.
always prepared.
He's always ready.
gotta give
He's
him that.
always prepared. So I think he's the slower fighter, though. And I think that Crawford is brilliant as a boxer. And I think that between switching to conventional and southpaw, using his jab and movement, I think that Crawford is going to outpoint Canelo because he's faster.
Sebastian Fundora leaned the other way, siding with Alvarez. For him, the logic was simple. Canelo has been living at super middleweight for years, unifying the division and proving himself as the man to beat. Crawford, in contrast, is stepping into unfamiliar territory. Fundora admitted, though, that Crawford's adaptability makes him a constant threat, and if things line up, the American could absolutely spring a surprise.
What about Ennis? He's the new addition to 154. He's yet to fight there. Canelo brought him in camp specifically because he's a switch hitter like Terence Crawford. What do you make of Ennis just not being in your division and then him contributing to Canelo's camp heading into this fight? Is that a good move?
I think it's good for Canelo's camp to have a fighter like Ennis. Because, yeah, he likes to switch right-handed, southpaw. I think Canelo probably didn't need that. But, you know, the fact that Ennis went might cause a little bit of drama. I think he did it for a dramatic effect. But, you know, great fighter at 147, but 154 is a different division. They have me in there, so we'll see what he can do.
Andy Lee described the matchup as a razor-thin chess game. He sees both men having traits that could sway the fight in their favor. Crawford has repeatedly shown his ability to rise in weight and adapt without losing effectiveness, while Alvarez has mastered subtle tricks of controlling the ring. For Lee, this is not a fight likely to be won in wide fashion, but rather through the smallest of margins, perhaps a single lapse or a sudden moment of brilliance.
On the same night as that, over in Las Vegas, Canelo Alvarez takes on Terence Crawford. What are your thoughts on that sort of super fight, I guess you could say?
Yeah, what a fight. Very hard to pick a winner, isn't it? Very hard to pick a winner because like every good fight, you know, no one really knows the skill and competitiveness and ring craft of Crawford, or, you know, you can say the same things about Canelo, but just he has that size. And but I see Crawford in New York when Hamza fought Berlanga, and he doesn't look too small anymore. He's filled out a lot. He looks quite big. It's a great fight. I think they're equally matched in skill, and it's going to be one of the best fights. It's going to, like, when you see how skillful both fighters are, the tricks they have, and how they fight. It should be one of the best fights of the last, I don't know how many years. You know, it should be up there with the best fights we can remember.
Zab Judah made perhaps the boldest prediction. He praised Crawford's ability to dictate the pace, frustrate opponents, and stay a step ahead. Judah even suggested that Alvarez might wear down late in the fight, opening the door for a possible stoppage in the championship rounds. He emphasized Crawford's reflexes, ring intelligence, and knack for breaking down fighters over time.
What about Canelo and Crawford?
Crawford. No hesitation. No hesitation.
I want to see that fight.
Big Bud. Big Bud. We're going to have to roll Canelo up. We're going to have to pack him up, baby.
But how hard is the jump from 47 to 68?
I mean, listen, it's a very big challenge. But what I said, with his skills and the way he's adapted to the size, brother, when I seen him stand toe-to-toe and side by side, I said, game over. Terence Crawford. And listen, don't be surprised if he stops him. I'm telling you.
Who?
Don't be surprised
if Canelo stops Crawford.
Terence Bud Crawford stops Canelo.
I wouldn't be surprised.
I love you. Skills pay the bills. See that, Cody? Skills pay the bills.
The range of opinions highlights how evenly matched this contest feels. Some lean toward Crawford's sharpness and fresher legs, while others trust Alvarez's size and proven pedigree at super middleweight. What unites them all is the recognition that this is not a fight with an easy answer. The margins are slim, the possibilities many, and the stakes enormous. As the final bell approaches, one thing seems certain. This fight will not just be about who is stronger or faster, it will be about who can adapt in the moment, who can stay disciplined, and who can rise to the occasion when it matters most. Crawford has the brains, the hunger, and the belief of many experts behind him. Alvarez has the power, the experience, and the size that cannot be ignored. The outcome will define not only who wins on the night, but also how both men are remembered in the history of boxing.